Chuck, tell me, before we get to the actual interview, you've set up a call with Anthony. Could you tell us a little bit about who he is?
Yeah, so Anthony, we are co-workers at CBT Nuggets. He's been there a lot longer than I have, but he is an incredibly gifted speaker, incredibly gifted trainer. He teaches pretty much everything. The big thing that you guys might care about is that he's a CCIE. He's been a CCIE for a while. He knows a lot about AWS. He's taught courses on that. So we're going to pick his brain. He's also really big into CompTIA. He's written books and produced training for A+, Network Plus, Cloud Essentials, Cloud Plus. So he's got a large breadth of knowledge, and we're just gonna find out everything we can, pick his brain, so that you guys can know about all this stuff.
And I want to say this, Chuck, to everyone watching. We are trying to ask the difficult questions. We are trying to ask the people that we talk to the questions that you want us to ask them. So please make sure that you put below the video the kind of questions you want us to ask and the people you want us to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely, because we're trying to get the answers you need for your career.
Yeah.
What path you want to go down. If there's something you really, really want to know, you'll never know unless you ask it. So let us know so we can ask these questions for you.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So, I mean, we want this channel and this podcast, and just that everyone knows we do have a podcast. We want this show to be something that's two-way. It's not just us talking to people. It's us asking the questions that you want to have asked.
Right, exactly. We're kind of just like, we want to make this more about what you guys need for your career and more about what you want. And we're not going to sell you anything in the process. This is just going to be pure, we love IT stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Looking forward to it, Chuck.
All right, let's jump into it. Hey guys, welcome back to This Is IT. Today we have someone very, very special. He's a fantastic human being, tennis player, private pilot, and he knows everything about networking. Everything there is to know. He's mastered everything. So, Anthony, what are you?
Yeah, you covered it. I play tennis like Roger Federer. I know networking better than, who should I say? Jeff Doyle.
Network Chuck.
I'm better than Jeff Doyle. I'm better than Wendell Odom. Just kidding. So yeah, I play tennis as good as a 6-year-old child, and I know something about networking. I am thrilled to be here, Chuck. Thanks so much for inviting me. And I noticed there's someone else with us. I know that name.
Yeah, Anthony, it's good to see you, man. I've been looking forward to us catching up and talking. So yeah, we're really welcome to. Well, how do I say this? Really good to have you on the call, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Anthony, we wanted to have you on because you've done a ton of, you train on pretty much every technology. I mean, I was looking at your courses on CBT, and like you cover everything from Microsoft to Juniper to Cisco to CompTIA. And I know the big stuff in the news right now is CompTIA has kind of revamped their A+ certification, and it's been new this year, and they put some new stuff in there, kind of shocking. So. You are the expert on A+. I would consider you the expert. So tell us more about that if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the goals of CompTIA with A+ has been really, they're desperately trying to break out of what so many people think A+ is about, and that's how to build a personal computer. You know, I think looking back, searching my memory banks back, I mean, at one point, that's what A+ was about. You know, it was like the components that make up a personal computer and maybe a bit about how to support those.
Oh, that was me. Like when I took my A+, I mean, it was all computer stuff, and it had Mike Myers. Are you familiar with Mike Myers?
Sure am, yep.
Yes, when I watched him, he was like that. He miniaturized himself in like this little thing, and he put himself inside a computer on a motherboard, and he was like pointing at circuits. I was geeking out over that, but it's been a long time.
That's great. Yeah, it's gone so far beyond that now. They're really looking to make it more role-based. So Chuck, what they were doing was they were like, okay, there's a role that someone might have as a server administrator. So there's a ton of server admin type content. Then they realize, okay, someone may be going on to be a cybersecurity analyst. So there's a ton of security content. Someone may be focused in the plumbing, the routers, the switches that make a network function. So there's a bunch of that content. Now, of course, they don't go very, very deep because your training would never end. but it's a really nice first step, I believe, into these various specializations of information technology that we might find ourselves in. So it is well beyond how to build a PC.
So I was going to ask you, Anthony, so for someone who perhaps doesn't know the different certs, and sorry, Chuck, jumping ahead here, could you just give us like a quick rundown of like, what A+, and I mean the other certs that CompTIA has?
Yeah, so that's something else that CompTIA is working hard on, is to not just have someone take their A+, and then CompTIA goes, good luck, bye-bye. Now you go to some vendor and you start specializing. What they're really trying to do now is develop a whole track of vendor-neutral certification that can take someone from the ground up and really boost them into some specialization. So they have, for someone that just only knows how to spell IT, they're like, I'll give a very personal example because I have a friend that is contemplating this move, and he is currently a physical therapist. So, he is in a field pretty much unrelated to IT, except for when he enters in his client's information in a spreadsheet. So he's career changing, and his first step in CompTIA would be IT fundamentals. So this is like, what is IT? What different areas exist in IT? And then A+. And then if I sit down with him and discover he's super excited about security, now CompTIA has the various security programs that they offer, so he can continue in his specialization of security right with CompTIA. There's Security Plus, there's the cyber security analyst, they'll be adding pen testing. I think that's already live now with them. So they're going to be building out these tracks across security, cloud, what else?
There's like a networking cert as well, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. Network Plus, exactly. Thank you. So
Yeah, we know a little bit about that, don't we, Anthony?
A little bit.
we taught that monster. And, that's one of the challenging things about these is that they are massive areas of study. When we did Network Plus at CBT Nuggets, we grabbed Chuck and said, Chuck, you are so good at VoIP and you're so good at these technologies that are covered. You do that part. I was given cloud, no surprise since I teach a lot of AWS. So yeah, we had 4 or 5 instructors to create that one massive course.
Yeah. So Anthony, you started fundamentals, is that right? And then, sorry, my mic fell out, so give me a second. So Anthony,
unprofessional.
Oh, well, what do you expect, dude? It's like Friday afternoon in the UK. I'm ready to go and end off for the day, and now you make me have a call because I have to live according to American time zones. Is that right? So,
Hey,
Anthony, our little debate aside, sorry. So we'll start being professional now. So, you would recommend someone starts like your friend. I think that's a great example. So he is totally doing something unrelated to information technology. And then did you say it was like a fundamentals course, and then from there it branches out to something else?
Yes, and that's exactly right. And that's, I think, a very, very common misconception with CompTIA. It's like everyone starts at A+.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
No way. No way. You would want to sit down with someone and investigate the depth of their experience and knowledge, because they may be starting before A+ in the CompTIA curriculum, or they may be starting after A+ in the CompTIA curriculum. You might be talking to someone who really wouldn't benefit from A+, and they might start with Network Plus or Security Plus or Server Plus and go down one of those different pathways.
Yeah, because I've always thought you start with A+, and then you branch out from there, but you're saying that's no longer true.
No, I don't think that's true. Unless, again, they lack any experience in IT whatsoever. Then they might be starting with the precursor to A+, which is IT fundamentals.
And
So,
go on,
sorry,
Chuck.
sorry to interject. So, Anthony, in what situation would you tell someone they don't need any of the CompTIA certs? That they should just jump into vendor-specific certs? Because I've made that argument quite a bit on my YouTube channel. Like if you're wanting to hustle and you kind of know the direction, like if you want to become a network engineer, like that's your path, you don't need to sample stuff. When would you recommend people go CompTIA or just skip it?
I would say it'd be pretty rare for someone to skip CompTIA. I don't think that would be a good choice unless they are in an environment where, they have an employer that says, okay, we're a Juniper shop and we need you to start achieving your Juniper certifications right away. So notice this is an interesting situation, right? Because the individual must have some experience with information technology or they wouldn't be getting the position. So it's like, okay, they have the A plus, they have the IT fundamentals, they maybe even have the network plus equivalent knowledge. They have that equivalent knowledge, and now they've got an employer that says, okay, you need to focus on Juniper certification because we are a Juniper shop, go. So that would be an example of where they're not going to look at CompTIA at all, but they already have that knowledge somehow.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And that's what I'll tell people sometimes. I'll say, okay, do you struggle with basic IT concepts? Can you troubleshoot your computer? Do you know how to the basic building blocks of a PC? Can you troubleshoot your home network? Well, then you could probably skip it. You could probably play catch up a little bit with the CCENT or what's the begin? Does Juniper have an equivalent CCENT?
Yes. Now, so that's a great point. So one of the reasons why I suppose some could skip CompTIA is that two of the giants in the industry, Cisco and Juniper, they start with entry-level certifications that are very CompTIA-like. You think about CCENT from Cisco, it starts with, what is a network? A network has a router. I don't know why I'm singing a jingle right now.
That clip is going on Instagram and Twitter. That's
for sure.
I remember that who I'm speaking to, I'm going to be so embarrassed with this YouTube.
Now you're going to be famous.
Oh, yeah. Might
More
go
famous
viral.
than you are now. That's going to be a Christmas jingle, Chuck.
And to answer your question, Chuck, Juniper does the same thing. So they have a CCENT-like starting point, and sure enough, that covers stuff like what does TCP do versus UDP do? What does a router do versus a switch? And of course, that content is very much what students are studying in the CompTIA curriculum.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I've got your book on Network Plus, and when I looked at your book, it looks very similar to CCNT or CCNA. Seems to be a lot of overlap between the two.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. And what's really funny about it is CompTIA does a great thing. They are vendor neutral. Okay, wonderful. But let's face it, vendor neutral to a point, right? Because when they show an example of a router in action, let's face it, it's going to be a Cisco or Juniper device.
Right.
When they show an example of the desktop of an end user in action, it's going to be Windows. So,
Yeah.
They're vendor neutral, sure, but only to a point. And we better, when you're practicing for your A plus or your network plus or your security plus, what are you going to be using? You're going to be using Cisco routers and Windows desktops. So.
Yeah, when I looked at your book, you had a lot of Cisco commands in there, so it looked like there's a lot of overlap between the two certs. So would you recommend someone goes for CCNA or do Network Plus first, or is it coming back to that whole thing? How's your basic knowledge first? And it depends on what your employer decides.
Well, one of the things I would definitely recommend at this point, as IT gets more and more diverse with many more specializations possible, if they are someone that says, I want to work in IT and I want to be happy in my career and I want to make a lot of money, but I have no idea where in IT I'm going to fit, then programs like CompTIA start to look really valuable because they're going to get a great taste for cloud, VoIP, server administration, the plumbing, routing and switching, and all these cybersecurity. So they're going to get a taste for all of those different fields, as opposed to starting with CCENT, which is going to be extremely biased to routing and switching.
Right.
Yeah, and Cisco. Yeah, sorry, go on.
And you kind of skip that assumed knowledge of general PCIT knowledge. And I was talking with a few of my network engineer buddies the other day, and they said that a lot of their junior network engineers coming up, they have never worked on a help desk, which that's the normal path for us, right? When we start on the help desk, we move our way up. That's the natural progression. But it seems like a lot of guys out there are skipping that step, and you notice it. They could not troubleshoot their own PC issues. They could not troubleshoot someone else's PC issues. And I almost feel like that's essential because a lot of network issues also could not be a network issue. and you're missing part of it in just the basic PC troubleshooting.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's an art to something like troubleshooting. And if you have gaps in, just like you said, it really could be the end station, the end host that's the issue. And they don't know how to troubleshoot that. That's going to be a big challenge. And, the other thing that I hear a lot is, and this is unfortunate, all three of us on this show have all gotten this email, I'm sure. Where can I make the most money?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I need to make, I can't put it in pounds. Sorry, I'll put it in you.
No, that's okay. I'll forgive you.
I need to make $150,000 a year. Quick. What should I specialize in? And it sounds corny. It doesn't sound legit, but I really do believe the answer is take something like A+ and get a taste for all these disciplines and go with the segment that excited you. Period.
Yeah, I agree.
End of story. How are they ever going to achieve financial career success if they don't like what they're doing? It's not going to be possible.
Sorry, go on.
A great example for me that I wanted to give real quick is VoIP. I have so much respect for Chuck Keith and Kevin Wallace because I don't get it at all. Does not excite me in the least for whatever reason. And what's really interesting to me about it is aspects of it are my favorite. For instance, like Kevin Wallace, I am a huge quality of service nerd. I just think it's the coolest, one of the coolest things I've ever studied. Yet, I do not want to be in unified communications. So if someone said to me, "Oh, Anthony, you want to make a lot of money? Unified communications," I would say, I'll make a little less money and I'll just go ahead and stick with cloud.
Well, we can't all be perfect, Anthony.
I think it's a very valid point. I mean, we're in an industry where you can make very good money. So, and the nice thing is, you can choose different paths and still do well, as long as you're prepared to keep on learning and keep on adjusting. I mean, I didn't want to jump the gun here, but I mean, Anthony, you were a big, you still are, like Cisco, CCIE, but now you've gone full steam into cloud stuff. So, I mean, you've adjusted as well.
Yes. And, cloud stuff sure seems incredibly easy. And I was wondering, why is it so easy? And then I realized, oh my gosh, it's so easy because I have a rich understanding of the data center that is actually making these cloud technologies work. So I'm very thankful that I did the breadth of training with like a CompTIA and a Cisco and a Juniper, because while I am scripting against AWS or using the management console, I have this deep understanding of what's actually occurring in the data center behind the scenes. And I would love other students to experience that, as opposed to just going, okay, I need to make a lot of money. Let me start my AWS certifications. And they start there, and they're going to struggle with what is a subnet, what is a router, what is a firewall, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a very good point. I mean, people forget the cloud is just a bunch of network devices and servers hosted somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Just happens to be, a lot of data centers located around the globe. And yeah, but at the end of the day, it's all of the networking stuff that we should know with a ton of virtualization poured on top of it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because like Bart, we're talking to him the last week, and he said that he thinks that A+ is a great prereq for the beginner level AWS certifications. And I see that now because, I mean, a bunch of network guys are going, oh, I want to get into AWS. I want to go cloud. But if you don't have that breadth of knowledge of how all the other pieces work besides networking, you're going to miss out on a lot, and you're not going to have that depth of understanding that you need to go into like the solutions architect. I think it's going to be key.
Yep, very much so. So, yeah, I mean, everyone is different, and the journey for someone is always going to be unique. What courses they would be best for them to take, that's going to be unique. And then, of course, how they study, that's going to be very unique. That's another, funny one that has a lot of variety. You'll talk to someone that says, oh, the only way to pass A+ is with flashcards. The person next to them is going, flashcards? What? I almost got a perfect score in the 2 A+ exams. I didn't use a single flashcard. What are you talking about? So, it's a very, very personalized journey.
Well, that brings up an excellent question. So I know with like Cisco exams, I always recommend people, and a bunch of people in the community say this, lab it up. Use Packet Tracer, use GNS3, whatever. With the A+, it's a bit more broad, so labbing may not be as practical, but if you wanted to be more hands-on, what would you recommend for that area?
So great question. You absolutely will want to be labbing as much as you can, in my opinion, as you study A+. And a lot of training packages I'll see will include labs now because they caught on. In fact, that's something that we're doing at CBT Nuggets. So when we discuss something like an Active Directory domain, the learner is going to get the hands-on experience of setting one of those up. And that is critical. One of the things that we see all the time, can I talk very freely on this?
Of course you can.
Okay. I do want to talk about something that's sensitive, and I'm very sorry if I'm going to upset a viewer out there. I just want to be honest. When we look at students attempting a practical exam, and an excellent example of that is the CCIE, where for 8 hours, they're going to be sitting at one of Cisco's headquarters, and they're going to be pounding away at the keyboard for 8 hours, demonstrating that they know how to configure this equipment. The students that struggle tremendously in achieving their CCIE, one of the reasons that you can see many of them are struggling like that is because they cheated themselves to some degree in the underlying cert process. So they'll show up at my blog site, for instance, and they'll say, Anthony, I just got my CCENT, my CCNA, and my CCNP in 6 weeks, ready for IE. And I think to myself, they prepared for those examinations in some kind of interesting cram-style fashion.
Brain dumps.
Yeah, that's right. And they're going to have a real tough time when it comes to the CCIE. because, it's sure there is a written multiple choice exam. And even that exam, they're going to really struggle with because they're going to be looking at these exhibits of router output that they're going to struggle to interpret because they've probably never seen it before. So, labbing, doing these technologies is absolutely critical. And that's where cloud students have such a wonderful bonus.
Oh, yeah.
Free tier accounts in AWS and Azure and Google and IBM and Oracle's cloud allow them to get started with no investment. And, many of us old timers in Cisco look at students today.
That would be Chuck, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely Chuck.
I'm like Gandalf over here.
The old timers, they're so jealous of students today with tools like GNS3 and Viral and, all these lab solutions that are priced either free or priced affordably.
Well, you forgot to say, back in my day.
Yeah, back in our day, yes, exactly.
I run into him every year at Cisco Live, and I'm blanking on the name right now, but it'll come to me. He used to be with Fluke Networks. I give this guy the biggest hug every time I see him at Cisco Live because he found me via my blog in its earliest days when I was studying for CCIE. And he came up to me at a Cisco Live and he said, "It's such a pleasure to meet you. You're such an inspiration. And I have a full rack in my basement that you can use when I'm not using it." And he was a key reason that I got my CCIE, and he saved me thousands of dollars in rack rentals. Yep.
Wow.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, people forget how much easier it is today. And we don't want to bore you and everyone else watching about the bad old days, but it's definitely a lot better today. But Anthony, something you said there I think is really important to emphasize. You said they cheat themselves because people think there's a shortcut here. In life, there's often no shortcut. You've got to put the work in. And I think what you said is very true. If they don't get caught out on the CCIE, they'll get caught when they get a job.
Yeah, exactly. One of the funnest things to do for the IT people in organizations that are hiring is to come up with questions that someone that didn't do the work would not be able to answer. Like you can just come up with that question that's like, okay, if they didn't really lab OSPF, or if they didn't really lab up a DMVPN solution, they're not going to know the answer to this question. And they're not hard questions or trick questions. They're just questions that would easily sort out who knows their stuff and who doesn't.
And I mean, the idea is not to learn the answers to the questions. The idea is to get an understanding of the technology, because that'll take you, your example, it's the same happened with me. When you move from one sphere to another, because you've got an understanding of the underlying technology, you can take that with you. Like, I wanted to ask you, like, when you went from Cisco to Juniper, was that also true? You understood OSPF, you understood BGP, and it helped you move from one vendor to another.
It really did. That was the smoothest transition. It was just, amazing. Obviously, it was a little painful because I'm doing, a
You're on the dark side. That's why it was painful.
It was really funny. You're doing some command that you've done your whole life, and it returns an error, and you're like, ooh, But once you get over that, and it's tricky because so many of the Cisco commands work in the Juniper world same way. So you're having a bunch of commands that are identical, but then there's those key command differences. But I mean, that's a minor issue. To your point, I knew OSPF. OSPF is not owned by any one entity. And OSPF, my knowledge of it made learning it in Juniper a snap, a breeze, no problem.
Yeah, that was my experience when I had to learn HP products. I mean, the interface was different, but the underlying technology is the same. So as long as you get that understanding, it carries through your career for many years, no matter what you're doing. And it sounds like that's happening again for you with AWS.
Yeah, exactly. And, one thing that served me well, I realize as I look back on my career, one thing that's
Ooh, that's a far look.
one thing that served me well is, hopefully it's not ending soon. That was like a statement, like I'm in my last year of.
This will be a memorial podcast.
I'm not leaving the house today, honey.
You're gonna take up singing, is that right?
Yes, yes, definitely. And my voice went just as we made that joke. So, but one of the things that I would love to tell your listeners is try not to have technological bias, because that's not going to serve you well in this industry at all. Some of my most popular CBT Nugget courses are in Juniper, and I'm so glad I did them. I could have easily said, whoa, I'm not teaching the dark side. I'm a rebel fighter. Ooh, now I'm struggling with Star Wars analogies. But when CBT Nuggets approached me, and they even did it reluctantly, it was like, hey, have you ever thought about teaching Juniper? And,
How dare you?
And what I said was, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to, really dive deep into Juniper. So I would beg our listeners out there not to have that technological bias in anything. I get asked all the time, hey, I notice you use Windows and you use a Mac, and I noticed there's a Ubuntu box over there. What's your favorite desktop operating system? I would never pick a favorite, ever.
So
I mean, it's a good point. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. Sorry, Chuck.
That's right.
So I'm curious. So Anthony, I'll hear you guys ask me questions like, "Hey, I want to go for my CCNA, but I also want to become a boss of all technology. So should I jump into Juniper next, and then VMware, then that, and that, and that?" At one point, should you decide to become vendor neutral, and should it be that you're only in a Juniper shop and you go for that, or should it be that you just want to broaden your tech? I mean, when would you recommend doing that?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's another great question, and it addresses a problem that I see with some really eager students. They can't seem to get anywhere because they're trying to study too much, all at the same time.
Mm.
There's I won't mention his name, but there's a famous CCIE candidate. He's been studying for his CCIE for probably like 2 decades. And one of his issues is he's studying for all of them. Oh, what CCIE are you going to take? All of them. I'm going to pass all of them. Well, you might not want to study for all of them at once. You may want to specialize and focus in just one of those tracks, because
That's not real. That can't be real. You study for all of them, you said?
at one point he did post that, yes, that he was studying for all of them, he decided. And, that's a lofty goal, but you probably need to focus. So, students should study what interests them, study what they're passionate about, but focus, really focus on the path that has been laid out for them. And a lot of students will need our help in us maybe asking them a few pointed questions and then them being directed in a curriculum path that's right for them.
I think what you said is great. I mean, the idea with CompTIA is that you start with generalist topics, and then you find like what you enjoy and what your passion is, and then you focus. So it's kind of like at university. Someone used this analogy as well, that when you start out your first year, you do a whole bunch of different subjects, and then as you spend more and more years at university, you specialize. And I suppose it's CompTIA A does something similar here, where you start, with A+ covers a whole bunch of things. You do a few CompTIA certifications, and then you can focus. Would you agree with that?
I would completely agree with that. And you know, we're not going wildly out of the sphere here, right? Like, you know, it's not like they're going to university and they want to study to become a doctor, and we're asking them to study English literature. So, you know, we're not asking anything too much of these students. To learn about the hardware components that are in a personal computer, that may not be all that interesting to them, but that is a very small piece of the overall A+ curriculum. And, you know, learning about read-only memory and random access memory and motherboards, all of that stuff translates to the devices that excite them, like Cisco routers or Juniper routers. So, yeah, we're not asking too much of the learners, I don't think.
And I want to touch on the whole technological bias, because I used to be very much, and I still am guilty of this, but very Cisco oriented. And I remember when I worked at my one of my companies in the past, they were talking about switching to Arista switches. And I straight up told them, I said, if you guys switch, I'm looking for another job. Like, I had that much bias, and I was so in with Cisco, I was like threatening to leave. And I wish you would have told me that back then, Anthony, because now we're seeing in the industry that most companies don't just have Cisco anymore. They are going to Palo Alto for their firewalls. They might be going to Arista for their data center switching. It's just whatever is cheaper, and the competition is much more fierce now. So I was talking to my brother the other day, and he's at a company now where they kind of have a anti-Cisco bias, and they still have a large Cisco infrastructure, but they're kind of anti-Cisco, and they're all moving that direction, and he hates it. He hates it so much, but it's definitely the case nowadays.
Yeah, it's that way too across the board. You know, it used to be for cloud, public cloud, AWS was it. I mean, that was it. They invented public cloud. So they were the only option. So back then, you had the luxury of being biased to Amazon. But today, no way. And a growing area of cloud today is the migration of workloads across different public clouds to save.
It's like hybrid cloud.
Exactly. Yeah, it's in fact, we really could describe it as hybrid public cloud. So you're using multiple public cloud vendors to save on costs. I feel really bad for the person that's AWS biased, because now they're, you know, companies all excited about dynamically migrating workloads to Azure, and they're like, whoa, that, I can't believe it. That's the dark side, you know. So.
And that's interesting because cloud, I mean, the way cloud's moving, it's so much faster than any other technology I've seen. The changes they put in so quickly, the new services that come about, and just the competition's so fierce between Azure, IBM, Google, AWS. It's fun to watch this play out.
It really is. And the end users of the technology, meaning like enterprises as the end users of public cloud, they are benefiting so greatly. You look at Amazon Web Services cost for compute historically, compute power in their public cloud, and what's happened? It has gone down consistently. It just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So thank goodness they have competition.
That's
awesome. I wanted to ask you, Anthony, so if I'm a traditional network person, so CCNA perhaps or CCNP perhaps, how would you recommend I learn about cloud? Would you say I should do Cloud Plus, I think it is, from CompTIA A, or should I go straight into like AWS, or I'm sure Chuck will jump in and say Azure is which kind of path would you say for someone like someone new to networking, but now this time someone new to cloud?
Well, once again, I would take that candidate and I would ask them some very pointed questions about their experience level. But let's just say, as is often the case with this technology, they say to us, well, I'm an NP and I'm really good at Cisco, and I'm also learning Juniper and I'm really good at that. But as far as cloud goes, I've just heard of this AWS and Azure thing, and I don't really know any of it. And that, you know, obviously this is a common scenario. I would take that individual and I would put them in CompTIA's Cloud Essentials. The reason why Cloud Essentials is so important is that it gets them thinking about cloud the way their management will think about cloud, the way the CIO and the COO of the organization will think about cloud. And it's also a very brief course. It'll be a very simple certification for them to achieve, but it gives them that non-technical look, and they'll start to think like their managers are thinking. A quick example, it'll focus on what are the risks of going to cloud. You know, it's not just all advantages. There are some pointed risks that they should be thinking about. Then once they're done with that very, concise, rather simple training step, then they can look at Cloud Plus. And the difference between Cloud Essentials and Cloud Plus is technical content. Very simply, technical content. Now with Cloud Plus, they get super technical, or much more technical. And now, after Cloud Plus, they're ready for the vendor specific, in my opinion. And which should they choose? Well, if they have an idea of a company they want to work for, just check in with that company on what is their public cloud vendor. And if it happens to be AWS, great. There's certifications waiting for them. Microsoft, wonderful. Google, they're all having certification programs now, including IBM, I believe. So, they can go ahead and start that vendor-specific cert training.
What I see a lot too for those like cloud jobs or DevOps type jobs is they'll just say familiarity with cloud technology. They might even list all of them: Azure, AWS, and they don't care. They just want you to know because there's a lot of overlap. And if you go, it's kind of like learning Cisco versus Juniper. When you learn one, you're going to know pretty much how the other works.
That's exactly right. The first ever service that Amazon Web Services created was S3. That was the first public cloud service from Amazon. So S3 stands for the Simple Storage Service, and it is object-based storage, okay? The wonderfully cool object-based storage concept where you're not locked into some file system with all of its silly rules like, put your stuff in folders. You can only have this many folders, and the folders can only have this many objects. Object-based storage is so cool because it is so incredibly flexible. So when you learn that, you're like, oh, I bet you Microsoft must be doing this.
The Blob.
Yep, you slide over to them, and they came up with a cooler name. That's a blob inside of Azure. So notice what happened here. I may have started with Amazon Web Services, and through my study of S3, I really have a high comprehension on object-based storage. Oh, I just have to learn a new, cooler term for it over in Microsoft Solution.
I'm glad what you said there, because you and Bart said something very similar. You said, don't look at cloud just from a technical point of view. Look at it from a management point of view. And that course that you mentioned, I think it was Cloud Essentials, gives people that perspective. Is that right?
Oh, Cloud Essentials is a really, really cool course. And I'm surprised that I love it as much as I do, because I'm not
technical.
Yeah, I'm not normally interested in non-technical aspects of our field. Yeah. So, but in this area, I was, because I think in this area it's really critical. And one of my hot buttons has always been, I've seen this for companies that I've worked for. CBT Nuggets is not this way. Maybe that's why I'm still there. One of the many reasons. I don't like it when companies get all excited about some new technology and they spend all this time and all these resources tracking for this new technology, and there's no business use case for why they're doing it. And you could just really see that happening with cloud, oh, we got to move everything to Amazon Web Services, and we got to do this, and we got to do that. Well, why are we doing this? What business goal is this meeting? And everyone just kind of looks at each other, you know?
That's a good point. Very good point.
Yep.
I've seen that a lot as well. Yep.
Yeah, it's like...
I won't mention any names, but there was a hot technology very recently in networking that seemed to be very much like that.
Yeah. I mean, machine learning, artificial intelligence, woo! Like, okay.
SDN. I've said it now. SDN, yeah.
Oh, dropping a bomble.
Dropping it, yeah, there you go. It's... Yeah, I think it's really important. I think from a certification point of view as well, you've got to try and look past what's exciting and look at what's going to make you, how you market yourself as well. So I wanted to ask you, this is like a really nasty question, Anthony, is I'm a CCMP. I get asked this a lot, so that's why I'm asking you your thoughts on it. I'm a CCMP thinking about going for CCIE, but I've heard a lot of things that CCIE isn't really that useful these days. Contemplating doing cloud rather than CCIE. What would you say?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm super freaked out right now. I think
I warned you.
I'm getting hives. See, this is the issue. This learner is doing that classic, like, where can I make the most money? And this is so dangerous.
But
Even excite them. And, and by the way, no one should even put CCIE on their roadmap ever if they are not super passionate and having a ton of fun when they lab. I mean, that's it. It's that simple. Like,
it's a great answer.
It is so difficult. It can be such a difficult discipline that if you're not enjoying that study, you're going to have a really, really tough time of it. So
okay, but sorry, carry on. I wanted to flip it around as well. Go on.
I mean, I would tell that person, hey, next Saturday, instead of just watching Stranger Things marathon on Netflix, I want you to see if you enjoy labbing BGP on top of an OSPF infrastructure all day. I want you to start at 8 a.m. and I want you to finish at 5 p.m. and see if you enjoyed that. And then next Saturday, I want you to go and practice building infrastructures in Amazon Web Services all day and see which one you were more passionate and had more fun with. And that would be a better barometer than any kind of, I heard CCIEs aren't making that much money anymore, which is, that's complete phooey. The CCIE has so much negativity surrounded by it, oftentimes, and who is propagating that negative stuff? Almost always, it is people that attempted their CCIE that gave up on it.
Great answer.
Yep.
Great answer. Great answer.
Yep. Oh, the CCIE is not worth it anymore? Oh, well, did you ever attempt it? Oh, you did. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Now, I like the answer. Very, very honest answer. That's a great answer. Sorry, Chuck.
I'm going to call it the Anthony Challenge. So lab all day with BGP and then do it again with AWS and see how you feel.
Yeah, I brought up the Saturday, by the way, because that's what I did. So my daughter was about 2 at the time, and my wife would take our daughter and they would disappear from the house for the entire day. And that was my all-day study for CCIE, day. And I didn't enjoy watching them leave every Saturday, and I sure enjoyed watching them come home. But I'll tell you right now, the 8-hour study session, I did not dread. I was having fun. Even when studying my least favorite topic, which was, Bo Williamson is going to kill me if he's watching this, it was multicast.
Oh, I was wondering if you were going to say that. Multicast is one of those sections, that most people don't like.
I learned to love it. And the reason I disliked it, quite frankly, was I didn't get it.
Yeah.
We tend to dislike those things that we're having trouble understanding.
Now, I'm gonna push you on this, Anthony. So forgive me. Okay. There's a difference between passion and what pays the bills. Like, I really, really enjoy BGP. But, like, my favorite BGP book is, like, really, really old. So BGP kind of seems to be one of those technologies that hasn't adjusted with the times. I mean, it's kind of stayed the same. And I mean, I'm purposely throwing you a loaded question here. So there's a difference between having a passion for a technology and where the future is going. I mean, I could say I love OpenFlow. I'm going to study OpenFlow, but where's that going? So loaded question. I enjoy both AWS. I really enjoy CCIE stuff, but I need to look after my family. And I know you're not going to like this question, but so even in that case, what would you say? The same thing, lab it up?
Yeah, I would say, and let's talk about the passion thing for a minute.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Would I have enjoyed more that 8 hours every Saturday being on the tennis court? Without a doubt, all day tennis every Saturday CCIE doesn't even come close to that.
I can't talk to you anymore, Anthony. Sorry, that's the wrong answer. CCIE is definitely more important.
We don't have any other hobbies, Anthony. You're talking to two nerds.
Go on. Sorry, just kidding.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I probably come across as more passionate than I actually was about this whole thing. I'm a passionate speaker and I love helping students. That's probably my biggest passion, is helping learners. But so, I say passion and we talk about loving what we do, but let's be careful about that, because let's face it, people are different. One of the best engineers I know, you would think, oh my gosh, he doesn't seem to like what he's doing. But it's just because he doesn't display his passion, in the way I would. So I think if the person's like, boy, studying for my CCIE is okay. And when I was playing with AWS, that was okay. Neither were painful. I could do both. I could do either. Well, then for that person, maybe they do want to go into the job listings in their geographic, place where they want to work and take a look at what would be available. And I would imagine that globally, that landscape changes. Like here in the United States, it has definitely been all about cloud and cybersecurity, but that may not hold true in every country.
And what about how difficult it is? How would you rate some of the AWS certs against Cisco certs?
Ooh,
so is there like a CCNA, CCNP, CCIE kind of level? Sorry, Chuck, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say that's a good question. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. One of the things that Amazon Web Services has not done yet, and it would serve them well to get working on this, is there is no practical that I've ever seen that I'm aware of. So it is all multiple choice based testing, and that can actually make it more difficult.
Oh, well, because I was going to ask you, it sounds like AWS is easier than CCIE, but it's interesting what you've said.
But it tends to get a little messy because we know what happens with multiple choice. They'll try and make it difficult, and we end up with a question like, by default, in the standard AWS account, how many buckets can you create in Amazon's S3? And it's like, oh my God. What a terrible question, because if I needed to know that, I would look it up in the AWS documentation,
So I'm pushing you again. So forgive me, Anthony. It's just Chuck and I get all these questions, and it's nice to get your thoughts on it. Would you say AWS is at CCNP level of difficulty, complexity, or is it much more difficult than that? And I mean, I'm assuming the different levels and stuff.
Yeah. So they structured their certification program very much. They've just restructured it fairly recently, and they're really impressed with Cisco, it looks like, as so many vendors are. So they introduced the AWS Cloud Practitioner, which is like their CCENT equivalent.
Okay.
And that is a great first step and is quite straightforward and easy to pass, relatively easy to pass. So, that exam would ask, like, you need to store a bunch of different files like videos and text files and Word documents in Amazon. What would be a good place? The answer?
Azure.
Amen. Preach it.
Sorry, I had to say that. Go on.
That's hilarious. So, and then, of course, the answer is S3. You know what I mean? Like, so if you know what the service does, you get the answer right. And then from there, you choose a track. So that's very interesting. Just like Cisco, you choose a track. Are you going to be interested in the developer track of Amazon Web Services? Are you interested in SysOps, like keeping the infrastructure running? Are you interested in designing, architecting Amazon Web Service solutions? So once you have that fundamental entry level, then they encourage you to specialize.
Now, Anthony, you're in a rare place to where you have your CCIE, but you also have your AWS certs. And so you have a knowledge of both areas. For someone who has that kind of skill set, what does that role look like if they had both of those skills? Would there be overlap? How would that come into play?
Well, I think one of the things that someone like me, if they weren't in training, would be looking to do would be consulting. I mean, think about it. I could offer my services from a real pragmatic, let's get in your data center and optimize your data center. Or I could help an organization that is not using a data center. They're relying on public cloud, and I could help them with their AWS implementation. Another area that if I wasn't in training, clearly I would be considering would be information technology management. So helping organizations choose the right technologies and choose the right staffing levels and things of that nature in order to grow. So I think the broader you make your skill set, the more vertical you could go inside an organization. And, I think many of my peers that aren't trainers have gone on to like chief information officer positions and things of that nature, which is great. And let me tell you, they had diverse technical backgrounds in order to be able to do that.
Now, I'm going to push you on I know we keep saying pushing, but I want to push you on the question that David was asking earlier. So you said that AWS and Azure, it's all getting cheaper to host your compute power and everything in the cloud because of the competition, which normally means with the industry, more people are going to realize, I can just, instead of paying all this upfront cost, I can move all my infrastructure to the cloud and it'd be much cheaper. So more and more people are going to be doing that. That means that less and less people are going to need CCIE skills. Yeah. So not just a passion project and not just what do I like doing, more am I going to have a job in the future?
Yeah, exactly.
Would it be wiser to go AWS or CCIE?
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
we're giving you a hard time, Anthony. Sorry.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Geez, could you guys ask me something like, how big can an S3 bucket be?
We have documentation for that.
I just Googled that.
By the way, the S3 bucket is unlimited in size.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. As long as you have the budget. So,
and Anthony, let me just say this. This is your opinion. So it's nice to talk to you. It's nice to get everyone's opinion. So, just give us your opinion. I mean, everyone is allowed to say what they like. So it's great to get, I'm sorry to say this and interrupt you. It's just that, as Chuck said, you've been CCIE or you CCIE. You've done the whole Cisco thing. You've done Juniper. Now you're on AWS. You've got this breadth of knowledge. So it's nice to talk to you and get your feelings.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, exactly. And people, I would hope know me by now that, I have strong opinions on this stuff, but I'm the first to say that there is so many times no single right answer. And this is my opinion. And my opinion on this tough question is that there really isn't, I don't see anyone in our industry that's posting out a job. It happened. Yep, I was just let go. And it's because we rolled out OpenFlow. Did I say that right? OpenFlow? Anyway.
Yes, you did.
Good, yeah. I was just like, I may have just made up a technology there.
It's a very touchy subject, that, Anthony. But yes, go on.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I think that if they have that bias where they're like, don't let programmers near my routers and switches, well, they probably made the wrong career choice to begin with. Because information technology is constantly changing, and we need to be constantly students of it. Yep. And if you don't want to embrace that to some degree, then you might want to consider another career with much less change and much less continuing education.
Now, I think that segues into a cool topic because you're always about the CCIE, and you have a great study group on your website where you help guys achieve their CCIE. And you also are producing on CBT Nuggets a CCIE Evolving Technologies course. What's evolving with the CCIE? And I'm assuming that as time goes on, as cloud becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, we're going to see more and more and more of that in the CCIE.
Yes. So Evolving Technologies was a great idea from Cisco Systems. Really, it was. And there's some listeners that are definitely throwing darts at a printout of my face right now because they don't like studying for that section. But I do think it was a great idea, and here's why. To keep the integrity of the CCIE intact as much as they can, they do a blueprint for route switch, let's say, and then they create a whole bunch of iterations of that route switch practical lab. So that, Chuck, when you go take your practical lab, let's say next weekend, and then I go take it the next day, and we're doing what we're not supposed to do, but let's face it, everyone would. We're sitting down at a Starbucks and we're exchanging information about what we saw in our test. We're just blown away because your test was so radically different from my test. And to do that takes a lot of effort on Cisco's part, so they can't rev the CCIE blueprint for route switch, let's say, every single 6 months or a year. And it would be great if they could, because they could start keeping up with newer technologies. Instead, what they did was they said, okay, we're not going to be able to rev it as much, and we never will be, so we'll add a section of content that we can rev much more frequently and talk about evolving stuff. And one of the areas of evolving stuff that they've added is network programmability. And since they introduced evolving technologies, just like, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, they've already revised it twice. And the network programmability section revised because there's new developments and new technologies happening inside of that one little sphere. And to your point, Chuck, they had cloud. This was a way they could introduce cloud, and they have revised that section already. And they're starting to talk about things like, multi-cloud vendors, like we discussed on this call, where you will be migrating workloads based on costs. And so it's the evolving technologies thing was a cool idea. One way that it's a pain point, I think, for the learners is, remember, the evolving technologies section is the same across all the tracks. So it's kind of, it goes back a little bit to the, I want to study medicine and some university is forcing me to study English literature. So it's a little bit of that. You have this security CCIE person and they're like, why am I being forced to study cloud? Although right when those words came out of my mouth, that sounded dumb. They better be ready to study some cloud, because cloud security is one of the big niches these days.
Great answer. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great answers, Anthony. I like the way that you're pushing it back. It's not just one answer for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, everybody, everybody's going to have a different area that excites them more than other areas. Everybody's going to have maybe benefiting from CompTIA, maybe not. And then, of course, once they start studying, I think one commonality we can say is lab it. Lab it up. Yeah. Yes. And I mean, I just don't see how you succeed in this field without it. Narvik, the wonderful CCIE trainer, he has a saying like, if you can't do it, you don't know it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
That's good. Now, I know we've had this conversation a few times, but I'm often contemplating, should I go for a CCIE? And I'll be the first to admit, I'm scared of it. I'm scared of the time commitment. I'm scared of all that. So I'm kind of just going to, whoever we talk to about the CCIE, I'm going to ask for some coaching. What do you think I should do? Should I go for it? And what are some things I should consider going into it?
Well, first of all, I think what students should do on a question like this is I think they should take a good, hard look at the why. So if you were to call me up, Chuck, and you were to say, look, Anthony, I'm going to do it. I've decided I'm going for my CCIE, and I assume that would be collaboration?
Probably not. I love routing. I just got my CCNP routing and switching, so I love routing and switching.
Absolutely. And what's great about that is you are the type guy that would, you're so smart, you would want to do route switch, then you would want to do collaboration, and you'd have this just really rich foundation of route switch that you add collaboration to. So route switch is always a great starting point, because you may love this study so much that you want to go on to additional CCIEs. And there's a tremendous amount of overlap. So a lot of students that are interested in multiple CCIEs will go route switch, and then they'll immediately go service provider because of the amount of overlap.
Ooh, okay.
Yep, tremendous amount. Like BGP, they've already studied a ton of BGP for their route switch, and now they leverage that with the amount of BGP they'll face in service provider. So, but here's the deal. If you called me up and said you're going for it, I would say to you, why? Why? And if you didn't have some real answers that you were excited about, we have a problem here. And I think that's, something really to look at. It is going to involve enough of your time that it is very much worth saying, why are you doing this? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you want the industry recognition? Are you doing it because you think you're going to increase your earning capability? Are you doing it because you think it's cool? I mean, why are the reasons you're doing it? And I think a lot of times that's missed a little bit. And then when the studying gets difficult, that learner who didn't really have good whys in place bails from the pursuit.
So within your CCIE group, what are some common whys that you hear? Because, I hear people saying, I just want it because it's like the pinnacle. It's my end goal. I want to reach that level of expertise. And for a lot of guys, they don't actually need it for their career. I mean, who really needs it except for consultants? So what are some whys you hear? That are actually good reasons.
Yeah, the biggest why that I hear is really career advancement. So it is. I was talking to a company that was interested. They were pursuing me, and one of the questions that they said is like, well, it was really interesting how much completely opposite of what all these naysayers are talking about. The CCIE held a ridiculous amount of weight inside this Fortune 500 company. It did. You know what I mean? Like, it really did. So career advancement, like taking their job to that next level, really is the number one thing I hear. And then I think second to that is just what you were just speaking about. The learner says to me, I don't care how long this takes me to get, I'm getting it because I am so passionate about Cisco routing and switching. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. That's awesome. That was 50% of my reason. My whys were split between, I love this. I might as well take it to the highest level I can. And then the other half of the equation was, I think I'll be able to make more money. I think this will advance my career. For training, look at that. I began my career training teaching senior citizens how to use the internet. I would teach them how to left click, and sometimes you have to double click. Practice with me. Pizza, pizza. Pizza, pizza. I was probably earning $30,000 a year teaching those classes on senior citizens and the internet. And I achieved my CCIE and did considerably better than 30K.
Well, I'll just tell you this. You've ruined double clicking for me. I'm just going to hear pizza pizza now.
That's right. So Anthony, I mean, Chuck knows a lot of the stuff that you're involved in, but I don't, and a lot of the people watching don't either. Do you have a blog where you talk about CCIE stuff? Do you have courses on CBT Nuggets? If I'm interested in learning about CCIE and I want to connect with you, where do I go?
Yeah, so great question. So CBT Nuggets is where I create my video-based training, and it's available there. And then AJS, that's Alpha Juliet Sierra, AJSnetworking.com. That is where I will post almost most of it is complementary to my CBT Nuggets. So what'll happen, David, is I'll be teaching a nugget on some AWS topic, and I'll be like, ooh, you probably want more information about that? Hit my blog. So it's additional material that I don't, have the ability to convey to them in video typically. And then as Chuck mentioned, I have a closed private study group for CCIE over there. It is full. We have 50 members, and I capped it at that intentionally. And then whenever that opens up, a seat opens up. We actually just had the coolest thing. We had a seat opened up because one of our 50 passed. And,
congrats. Wow.
Yeah, so that was so cool. And that opened up a seat in the CCIE Prep Club, we call it. And so that also runs over there at ajsnetworking.com. Now, for those that are like, oh, great, sure, you got a prep club and it's full, I can't get in.
Why even tell us about this?
For those listeners, I just want you to know that I am currently working on an ebook that I'll make available through ajsnetworking.com. And that ebook is going to have a title like CCIE Route Switch Demystified. I don't know if that'll be the end title, but that's certainly what I want to convey, because this book is going to, and Chuck, you'll want a copy if you just.
I'm getting excited as you're telling me about this, because I need that demystification.
Exactly. If you decided to do it, you need to get this book, because what I'm going to do is lay out really the truth behind achieving it. What do you really do? What holds people back from achieving it? And after all these chapters and chapters and chapters about how to do it, it's going to end with a full practice lab. So you will have this great, like, all right, you've read about how to do it. Go do all the practice that I've asked you to do. And then when you think you're ready to pass the real thing, here is a full-blown practice lab with the troubleshooting section, the configuration section, and the diagnostic section. And you'll give yourself 2 hours to get that set up on your equipment, and then 8 hours to actually do it like a test. And I'm hoping to save people the $2,000, over an actual attempt at the real thing.
And when does that get published?
I'm really hoping to get that done this summer. So the June, July, June. What order do those go in? June, July time.
That sounds really good, Anthony. I mean, one thing I wanted to say about you that's amazing is you do all these projects, but you're still writing like a book a day, it seems, because you've got a lot of books that you've written. Can you give us an idea of some of the books you've written? I see on Amazon that you've got an AWS book coming out, but you've done Network Plus. You've done a whole bunch of books. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no problem. So I really, really, really love to write. Almost as much as I do speaking. So I just got very lucky with CBT Nuggets really promoting and encouraging me to author textbooks. And notice though, David, I only take the stuff that would be very easy for me to write. So, when I was approached about Network Plus, it was like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And the only reason I said yes is because that's like, they say write what you know. So that was just like a no-brainer. And then the same thing happened with AWS. I was really honored that Pearson Publishing approached me about that. And I just flat out told them, cloud practitioner, I'll do that, because that would be something that I could write because I know it so well. It was a huge hit, and they approached me about like DevOps, and I was like, sorry,
So is the AWS book out now? Because when I looked on Amazon in the UK, it was looking like it was coming out in a month or two. Is that right?
Yes, I think it might be out. Yeah, I think so. I'm embarrassingly, I'm not sure.
No, don't worry. What books have you written, Anthony? Can you give us an idea? And you mentioned Network Plus and AWS. What else have you written?
2 books that I'm really proud of. They marketed them such a strange way. I'm really super proud of my exam crams. So the exam cram is that red and white colored text, and they're really good for CCNA. It's just they did such a odd thing. So they had me create a CCENT exam cram, and then instead of having me do an ICND2 like companion to that, they had me do a CCNA exam cram. So it was a little strange, but they told me that's the only way we're going to do it. So I was kind of forced to say, okay. So think about that. If the learner is doing ICND1, that exam, then they're going to do the ICND2 exam. I guess what they should do is, well, I guess you got to buy both books anyway you shake it. So one is geared at CCENT, and then the other one is geared at the composite exam. You see, so it's
It should have made 3 books, but I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yes, I don't know why they didn't make 3 books. Exactly. Do an ICND 1 book, an ICND 2 book, and then the composite exam book, and they could have just taken 2 books and basically, eliminated the redundancy. But they didn't do it.
So tell me, those books, what are they? When you say exam cram, is it like quiz questions or is it like last minute prep? What do the books have in them? And where does it fit in sort of the learner's path? Do they do that as the last thing, or where would you recommend?
That's exactly right. So what I love about those books and why they're so special, I think, is that the Wendell Odom, CCENT.
Those books that are about this big, yeah.
I mean, what an awesome thing. Best book ever, nailed it. Congratulations, Wendell. But now they've gone through that and they're like, whew, man, I'm struggling to remember chapter 2, and now the exam's coming up. My exam cram, I wouldn't say cliff notes because it's going into a deeper level of detail than just cliff notes, but it is very succinct. These are the things that you better know before you take that test. And as you might guess, before creating the ICND 1 and the CCNA exam crams, I went in to the latest version of those exams and really, really validated that my texts were hammering in the right areas.
That sounds great.
I have to ask this question. I've always wondered this. As a person who has a CCIE, and I think you took the CCIE exam last Cisco Live, and how does it feel, and what does it do to your brain when you go in and take a CCNA level exam?
It really just is hell. Because I can never score a perfect score. I am still looking for my perfect score. So it's just, and I'm joking about it being hell. I love taking exams. I'm taking one every single month. Sometimes I'm taking an exam a week. I just love cert testing. I know, it's weird. But so isn't it interesting, Chuck, that I've taken the ICND 1 18 times, passing it every time, but I've never, ever scored a perfect score as a CCIE in Rat Switch? So I always tell people, if you're someone that has to get an A+, this field, you better reprogram your brain, because this is a field where there tend not to be perfect exam scores. And there tends to be a word called fail that you are suddenly going to encounter. When I went to CCIE studies, I failed exams for the first time in my life. Also, recently I failed an eye exam, thus these cool glasses like David. But, it was really, really interesting dealing with the psychology of failing an exam. There'll be a chapter of that in my book. Yep. And my wife, who's eavesdropping, she was a big part of me not quitting, because I came dangerously close to quitting the CCIE pursuit. And I had sat down with her and gotten her buy-in on even doing it to begin with. And she gave me her credit card information so that we could afford it. And that was having her buy-in was a big part of me being a success at that. And then, like I said, she counseled me in, well, wait a minute. Why are you getting so upset about this recent failure? You're not quitting. You just take a day off, go play some tennis, and then get back on the horse, you Sally.
Well, that's excellent, because, I know the CCIE has such a huge, it's so a big suck on your time. You're taking a lot of time away from your family, so you would recommend that you have to get a full buy-in from your family, a sit down, a chat, to make sure that A, first of all, I'm going to be spending a lot of time away from you guys. And also, when I hit a stumbling block, when I fail, I'm going to need you to support me.
Absolutely. Get their buy-in and get their buy-in on the, and by the way, this applies to whatever our listeners are studying, right? If they're about to launch into A+, they should follow a similar methodology. Work out that schedule of study that they're going to do and get the buy-in of their friends and family.
That's excellent. That's really good advice, because I know my biggest complaint from my wife was how much time I would spend studying, and I didn't discuss it with her. I'm really ambitious, so I just went for it. But yeah, I think getting that beforehand will make your life a lot easier.
And it helped too in that I was really present for them when not studying, right? Like I didn't have like, oh, I should be studying in the back of my brain, you know? So like, you know, it was like, okay, it's Sunday, we'll do church, then we're doing the park. And the whole time we're doing that, I'm not completely freaked out about I should be studying. So, you know, and if I would start talking about CCIE, my wife would give me that look about it's not Wednesday at 6 p.m., dummy.
I think that also comes back to the why. Why are you doing it? You've got to have the why for yourself, but also for your family.
That's right. That's right.
And I think what you said is really cool. You've got to think that through and have a convincing argument for your family. You know, why are you doing this?
That's right. And, you know, you don't have to, you know, Chuck, you're a great case. You just finished the NP in Route Switch and you loved it. So, you know, now is kind of your decision point. So what I want to stress to people is, you know, don't, as you're going through, let's say your CCNA and then your CCNP, really enjoy that process and study those topics really thoroughly and lab it up and do a great job, because they of themselves are very valuable. And you know, you might decide that CCIE isn't for you, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. You know, I would rather hire a CCNP that really mastered that content than some guy that got his CCIE but doesn't really, maybe, you do see some people in this industry that will have their Juniper equivalent of the CCIE, the JNCIE or whatever it is, and they'll have a CCIE and they'll have some other big cert. And sure enough, the least area of passion for them is CCIE. Well, I don't want to talk to them if I'm a Cisco shop. So, the IE is wonderful, but it is most definitely not for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm struggling with right now, because I think I would be okay with not going for the CCIE, but also every time I talk to someone like you and I see people getting their CCIE, I get excited. I start to get the buzz. I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be so fun. I love routing and switching. I love labbing. But then I think about, do I really need it? So I think what you're saying about being okay with not getting it is also a really important point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can tell you, Chuck, based on what I know about you, it's like, okay, we can break it down this way. You're going to need about 600 hours. So there's the raw number right there. Yep. And that's 600 hours of legit, no distraction study. Now, could you do it in 300 hours? Well, of course you could, but your study would even have to be more hyper-focused and, just way less wasted time. We all know that we waste time sometimes when studying. Just the other day, I had my viral server, go down on me. And it's like, before I realized it, I was 2 hours futzing with viral. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's 2 hours of life I'm not getting back. And I sure would have been preferred to be studying data center during those 2 hours. But, if you're if you've got it all laid out, you can get it down. But I've talked to students that logged their time and they were 1,200 hours at
Oof.
CCIE. So
Wow.
yep.
Yeah, it's a big investment. Yeah, you got to justify it. You got to know why. And I think, Anthony, coming back to the hard questions of today, it's in the past, the path was very clear. CCNA, CCNP, CCIE, that was the way to get success, so-called. Today, the waters are a lot more muddled because you can do cloud, you can do DevOps, go and learn Python, go and do other things. It's not as clear-cut as it was when you and I started.
Yeah, exactly. I just did an intro to IT course that's freely available. It'll be on the CBT Nuggets website. It'll be on the CBT Nuggets channel at YouTube. And I was so honored to do the one they asked me to do. It was desktop support engineer, the help desk. And that's how I started in this industry. Before I got into training, I was on an IBM help desk here in Tampa, Florida. And it was for supporting internal IBM employees with what we called at the time their stink pads. Since then, but when it first came out internally, we were calling it the stink pad. So one of the things that I realized when I was creating that training was, boy, if I was looking for a great desktop support engineer position today, I know what I would do. I would go look at the one I wanted, the one with the great pay and the great benefits, and I would reverse engineer every single one of those requirements they listed and go study the appropriate certification. So one that I saw was like knowledge of Windows 10, the only Windows client that Microsoft offers now, and the only client they're talking about for the rest of time. There will be no Windows 11, according to Microsoft. So Windows 10, okay, great. And then it said like knowledge of storage area-based network systems. So this company is using Windows 10 for the clients and they have a SAN. Okay, great. What can I study that will give me that foundation of SAN knowledge? So, what to study for the great job, well, that information is out there. And sure enough, this job, you could tell them that you're a CCIE and they wouldn't hire you. And the reason they wouldn't hire you is you're way overqualified in that area.
So would you recommend, I think what you've just said there is if someone has this job that they're looking for, go and look on the job sites and see what the requirements are and then do the reverse engineering of that.
Yep. Reverse engineer it into certs. That's exactly right. And, I couldn't believe the level of detail they get into with job requirements now, and, and that's to bring it back to CompTIA. I realize now thinking about it that the A+ covered that individual fully. Because the A+ is talking about modern day storage solutions. Of course, it's talking about Windows 10 and, that type solution. So yeah, there's some certs. No wonder why CompTIA broadened that net like that of what the A+ covers. It covers a ton of requirements for jobs like support engineer.
That's great.
Yep.
Excellent.
Well, Anthony, if we could talk all day if we wanted to, so we might have to close this out because I know we just could sit here and talk about tech all day. But I wanted to end it with a speed round of questions. Okay, so here we go. Number 1, favorite routing protocol.
IGP or EGP?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite routing protocol, internal or external? It would have been a great question if you had asked external, because of course there's only one answer. I would have to say my favorite routing protocol is OSPF.
OSPF. Oh, very interesting. Vendor neutral. Look at you.
Sorry, Radia Perlman. I'm sorry, Radia.
All right, number 2, favorite Cisco command.
Show IP interface brief.
Oh, that's everyone. That's my favorite. Number 3, your most embarrassing exam fail.
Most embarrassing exam fail. Oh, boy, I don't tend to fail them, but there have been some failures. I would say it would be CCNP switch.
Ooh, okay. CCIE, are you going for another one?
That is so funny. So I am toying with the idea of data center.
Ooh.
But here's the thing. I am taking my own advice, Chuck. I am just crushing the NA, NP levels of that curriculum, and then I will make the decision. I am doing the NA and NP of data center as if I'm prepping for a CCIE in data center, but I don't know if I will do that.
So you're gonna finish up the NA, or do you already have your NA?
I already have the NA. I'm refreshing my NP.
Okay, and then you're gonna decide after that. Okay, cool. We may have to have you back on to talk about that because I'm sure people want to know how you're gonna start to prep for that. That's gonna be insane.
Oh, absolutely. And data center is a really super interesting one because the equipment, it's like back to the old days.
Yeah.
You know, that equipment is not readily available. You can't spin up that topology in GNS3.
And that's gonna be expensive too. Just get your kind of all the Nexus stuff. Oh my goodness.
That's exactly right. The rack cost over at INE is, I think, about $500 to $800 for a week, and they only rent it for the week.
Wow. My goodness. Okay, so we'll have to stay tuned on that. Your favorite topic to teach?
My favorite topic to teach would be anything involving AWS.
Ooh, interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
All right, iPhone or Android?
Oh, can I say I love them both?
No.
I have an iPhone issued by CBT Nuggets, and my burner is an Android.
Interesting. Okay, your hacking phone. All right, then Windows or Mac?
Oh, you are killing me. This could be career ending for me, but I'm going to say Mac.
Oh, wow. And you just created a Windows 10 power user course. Ah!
Ooh.
That is single-handedly ending my career. After this webcast, I'm going to be emailing David saying, what field should I go into?
Right. I'm with you with a Mac. Don't worry. Mac's my favorite as well. But I didn't create a Windows course, though, so I've got an excuse.
Well, I just switched back to, I still have a Mac, but I just bought a new Windows computer. So I'm kind of rediscovering that light. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I love both. I really do. I just, in my AT&T Next plan, my iPad Pro was fully paid off in mine. And so I sold that on eBay, and I just got a Galaxy Book 2 running Windows 10. So I flip-flop back and forth all the time.
Ah, nice. Well, that was all the questions I had. Thanks, Anthony, for being on with us. If you want to know more about Anthony, you can find all his amazing, just incredible training on CBT Nuggets. He's also on Twitter. I think it's CompSolve. Is that right? CompSolv. And he also has a really great YouTube channel. So you can check that out. I'll put a card up here and somewhere below. And also ajsnetworking.com. So anyways, Anthony, thanks so much for being with us. This has been awesome. I know so many people are going to benefit from your expertise, and you have a lot of expertise. So it's amazing. So thank you again.
Thanks so much. It was such a great pleasure to be with you and David here today. Thanks again.
Hey, Chuck, that was brilliant. Thanks so much for setting up the call with Anthony. Really good to talk to him.
Yeah, he had a very interesting perspective. Like we talked about, he comes from a very Cisco world, but he also has a wide breadth of knowledge going deeper into the other realms of IT. I thought it was a great perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's so nice to meet someone like that or talk to someone like that, should I say, who has the breadth. You know, he's not just Cisco. He's not just biased to Cisco, but he's done Juniper. And I find it really interesting that he says his favorite topic to teach is AWS. if you asked me that question, I would definitely say like BGP or something.
Yeah, and it's funny because he just created a BGP course, just BGP
Oh, yeah?
on CBT. So I thought he was going to say that because he loves BGP. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting that he likes teaching AWS the most. And I guess because it's kind of a combination of all the things he does teach. It's not just any one technology. It's going to be networking. It's going to be storage. It's going to be even working with Windows and Linux. It's everything.
I think it's also interesting what he said. A lot of people say that, and I agree with it. Don't chase the money. Do take your passion or follow your passion. Do what you love, because life is short. You don't want to spend your whole life doing stuff that you hate just for the money. You got to. I think the good thing in IT is a good field to be in. It's not like perhaps some other fields, and I won't mention names, but in other fields you can be really, really good, but you still won't earn a lot of money. As an example, my wife was a teacher. Teachers get paid much less than they should for what they do. But in our field, we're going to get paid well if we pursue, our passion in this field.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The only thing I was going to push him on, but I thought we pushed a little too hard already, but it was the fact that...
Well, we got to ask the audience. Do they want us to push harder?
Yeah.
Do you guys like it when we push?
Do you want us to make them cry, waterboard them? I don't know. But the way I think about it, because like with IT, I don't think I've gotten into an area of IT that I've necessarily hated. Everything I've worked with so far, I've pretty much really enjoyed. So like jumping into Azure, I really enjoyed Azure. So I don't know. So there's some areas in IT that you might hate. Like a lot of people are either they're going to be programmers or they're going to be doing what we do, more of the enterprise, more of the I guess the system engineering. So I think when you're making the choice between AWS and CCIE, I think it's less about passion, because I think if you're an IT guy, and that might just be my perspective, I'm going to love both. So then it comes down to the next criteria: how much money can you make? Where's the opportunity? If you got your CCIE, how much further would that take you if you got an AWS solutions architect and your company just started working with AWS? You might suddenly have a senior position, where a CCIE, there's already 4 of those guys on your team. So I think it's...
I must agree with you. Because I think CCIE is like a mature certification now, but the hot thing is AWS. So I would, and Anthony, forgive me, if someone was in your position, Chuck, I would say go do AWS first and then come back to CCIE, unless you really have a passion for CCIE.
Yeah, and especially since he kind of addressed the fact that AWS is less practical than CCIE, which he didn't answer it exactly, but I kind of interpret it as that it's easier. It's going to be easier than going for the CCIE. So you could probably jump in, grab a few AWS certs, and a quarter, maybe a 16th of the time it would take you to get your CCIE, and suddenly your market value skyrocketed versus a guy who only knows Cisco. So I think it's just it's a branding opportunity for you.
Yeah, I think, like he said, the certifications on AWS are like associate and NP equivalent kind of certs. You can go do the specializations, but I think if you're a CCMP, getting sort of a NA equivalent or NP equivalent in AWS or Azure makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like one guy I'm always impressed with on Twitter, I don't know if you follow him, but it's Cisco Panther is his handle, I think. Ernest.
Yeah, he's doing good.
He hustles harder than anyone I've seen on Twitter, but he's going for his Python, he's going for CCIE, he's going for AWS. So I think it's just smart to kind of diversify yourself now. It used to be where you could just go down one path and you can make your own career. Now, it's a little bit different. You have to become more broad. Companies aren't just going enterprise IT on-prem in the data center. No, you're going to have stuff in the cloud. And if you can position yourself to use cloud stuff, you're going to start making more money. You're going to have that. Those are the skills that people are looking for. So, yeah.
I agree. It's not like the old days where you could just be... those jobs still exist. You could be very specialized in a small area, but there's more opportunity if you're a bit broader these days. Definitely.
Yeah, and then there's something to be said about choosing the rare skills too, the hot skills. It's people get excited about all the new hot skills in the industry, and you shouldn't jump at every hot trend. But when you see something like AWS, when you see something like cloud, and it's actually taking foot, it's actually getting ground, you should probably learn that. Becoming, I guess, with an IT career, the more rare you can make yourself, the more money you're going to make. That's just how it works. If that skill is sought after and not many people have it, that equals more money.
I think it's important to stay with the trends. I mean, I've been in this game for a long time, and I've mentioned it before. Ride the waves that come. AWS is not going to be a wave that disappears in 3 months or a few years. Cloud is going to be around for a long time and is going to be important. So I think it's good to get on that wave as soon as you can while it's hot. And you, as you said, you become one of those people with a rare set of skills. So definitely agree.
Yeah, and again, Anthony, I love you to death, but I'm going to disagree with your point here. He was saying that when you apply for a job and you have the CCIE on your resume and they know it, it holds a lot of weight. I would agree with that. However, you might have in your resume, you only have your CCNP, but you've been working in IT for 5 years, and you have on your projects that you've implemented DMVPN for a 50-site thing, or you might have done this and that. I think that holds more weight. I don't think you need the CCIE in those situations. I think the CCIE is really only beneficial for a career in consulting because they are required. These consulting companies require to reach that certain gold level partnership with Cisco to have a certain number of CCIEs to sell those products. So that makes a total sense. But when you're working for an enterprise and they just need the skill set, you don't need the CCIE. They might just want someone really great with BGP, and they want you to be able to integrate your environment with AWS. So I think it's I don't know.
I think this debate will continue forever. I mean, it's I think there's what people forget is there's a massive jump from NP to IE. If you want to do it properly, there's a massive jump. I mean, guys, there's obviously guys that try and do shortcuts, and in the end they do a disservice to the industry and themselves. But there's a massive jump in knowledge from MP to IE. It sounds like it's, from what he's told us and what you've found when you've been doing Azure, it's a lot easier to go into AWS, go sideways rather than trying to go up. And I mean, I found the same with Python and programming. If you put a bit of effort in, you can get far quick.
Yeah.
It's not IE level of knowledge.
Right. I mean, if I were to get my CCIE right now, and like, I think about it like this. If I were back working in the corporate environment and I had to make this decision, I probably wouldn't get the CCIE. It would be nice to have it on my resume, but I don't think it would take me further than where I already was. I mean, I was already doing CCIE type level stuff with what I've already learned. It's just.
But I'll say this though, I think certifications is what gets you through the door, opens the door, because the job, recruitment agents and all these guys are just filtering, terms. So you might be a CCNP or you have CCNP level knowledge, but you want to get the cert just if you're trying to move jobs or trying to get a better job or move country or something. I mean, in my personal experience, the CCIE is what opened the door for me to move country. That opened a lot of doors. But once I was here, it didn't necessarily help as much. So I agree. If you want to work for a Cisco partner, having NPIE is really important. It can open a lot of doors, but it doesn't always give you what you think it's going to give you. You're not going to be a millionaire overnight type of thing.
Well, that's interesting. Like, because when you get your CCIE, you kind of hit the top of the pyramid there.
I don't know that one.
Alexa thought I was talking to her. That's creepy. I said CCIE, and she's like, "Sorry, I don't know that one." Well, she's not CCIE. Reaching your CCIE is reaching the top of that Cisco pyramid, and it does make you pretty rare, and it opens up those opportunities. So yeah, when people are searching for a CCIE type architect, and that's really the role. I mean, I guess when you get your CCIE, you're going to be doing less administration and less support and more just architect and design. I've talked to some guys who they have their CCIE, and what they do on a day-to-day basis is not what you would think. One guy I talked to, he was actually one of my mentors coming up. He says he rarely is in the command line anymore, and it's not that he's doing GUI; it's that he's on paper, he's in Visio designing, and much less hands-on. So I think
that's true. I mean, it's a natural progression in your career. You move more into design, so that's where CCDE comes in, or other certifications. So yeah.
So
I agreed. Sorry, go on.
Actually, I forgot where I was going, so I think we're we're good on that tangent.
No, I think it's one of those debates that people will have, and everyone will have a different opinion. This is my takeaway. If you want quick ROI, like in your situation, if you want to go far very quick, branch out. That wasn't true perhaps 10, 20 years ago, but now it's becoming more and more true, where you can do Python, you can do AWS. Like Chuck, in your example, if you were looking for a job and you just have an MP, your job options, I think, are limited compared if you had NP, AWS, and Python on your resume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, the jobs then just skyrocket to any kind of DevOps position. So many companies are looking for. I've seen a ton of jobs actually looking for very specific honed network skills, but they want you to be familiar with cloud so you can start to branch that out. And we saw the CCIE debate. We saw that with Stuart when we interviewed him. He doesn't have a CCIE, but he chose to study Python.
Hasn't stopped.
No,
him.
and look at him. He's working for Cisco right now. He's working for Cisco DevNet. He's presenting at Cisco Live. I mean, that's the highest point. He never thought. I bet you he never thought he'd be where he is, and that's without a CCIE. So I think it's going to be case by case, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's Anthony. What I liked what Anthony said. It's why are you doing this? And again, if you're just chasing money, that's not a good reason. I mean, you have to earn a certain amount of money to get a certain level of comfort in your life. But there needs to be a bigger reason than just that for all the effort that you're putting in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, if I were to go for my CCIE right now, my biggest why would just be getting those letters, getting that number. That's the only reason. It'd be a pride position, and not like a bad pride, but just like, oh, I reached that point. I've accomplished so much. This is good. It wouldn't change my career at all, especially now that I'm doing training. It wouldn't change me at all. Yeah. And I doubt that it would change me much if I were, I don't know. It might have changed my enterprise corporate career just a little bit, but I was doing collaboration, so that's debatable. Anyways.
And the problem is when you hit the CCIE, I think it's that whole thing, people have this goal. And they think when they get to that goal, they're going to be happy, but it's not like that. When you get there, then you realize, okay, so I've climbed this mountain, but there's like 20 other mountains that I need to climb.
Yeah, I always hear that too, and that could be a whole other video topic. Is you're happy when you're chasing something, you're happy when you're in the pursuit of something, but when you reach it and you actually gain what you've been working so hard to get, you suddenly get depressed because.
Happens.
Yeah, so I think that the happiest we ever are is when we're in the pursuit of something. So I think the lesson from that is just never stop. Always have something.
Yeah, I mean you can't stop in this industry because if you became a CCIE like I did all those years ago, the technologies. It's not always true. A lot of the technologies are still very relevant today, but I didn't become I think the key skill I learned there is how to learn. How to troubleshoot, that's something I learned very well, is troubleshooting skills that can be taken through your life. It's not necessarily just learning token ring or frame relay. It's the skills around those skills that are really valuable.
And you just hit the nose on the biggest reason. I wasn't thinking about this, but that's the biggest reason I want the CCIE, because it doesn't just show people that you know routing and switching. It shows people that you can ascend to that level of expertise. And no matter what it is, you had the discipline, you had the focus, kind of like getting a college degree or something. It's just the proof that you can do that and that you have done it, and it's a lot.
But I mean, we always have these questions, you and I, from people every day, and I think people forget that it's not a or situation. I always say, it's not one or the other. You can do AWS because you might be able to get that a lot quicker, and then still go for your CCIE further on. It's not like you have to choose one or the other. It's not like if you take this road, your life's going to go this way. You take this road, your life's going to go that way, and you'll never meet somewhere in the future. You can do both. So start with say AWS. I like what Anthony said with these data center certs. He's doing the associate and then he's doing the professional, and then he's going to make a decision. I think that's a great way to do it. Do some of the low level stuff so that you get you're understanding the technology. You see, is this really something that you want to pursue and put all the effort in? So it's not like you have to do CCIE or AWS. Look at you. You're doing Azure. You could do AWS. You could do CCIE as well.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because like what Anthony's doing is genius. I remember I would spend so much time just researching if I should go down a certain path, when if I just spent that same amount of time just getting the lower level certs, I would know beyond the shadow of a doubt. So that's genius what he's doing. So if you're considering a path,
I think so, yeah.
It's not much time to get the lowest level cert to see if you enjoy it in any way.
I think what he's doing is very clever. Yeah, so that was great. So thanks so much, Chuck, for putting that together.
Oh yeah,
for arranging
that.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony's a fantastic guy. Again, guys, you should
guy.
go follow him. And if you have any more ideas of who you want to see on this channel, like I know you guys read books, I know you watch training. Who in the industry do you want to see here on This Is IT? What is the burning question you want to have answered? Let us know.